Do you know that while most people are asleep, the hour between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. carries unmatched spiritual power? Every delay, every blockage, every unanswered prayer in your life is not by chance. It is sustained by permissions in the unseen realm. Tonight, you are being called to wake up, stand, and declare words that carry authority. These are not ordinary prayers. They are dangerous declarations that disrupt resistance, rewrite systems, and release results. If you continue to sleep through this hour, your destiny will remain delayed. But if you rise and decree with understanding, everything will begin to shift. Spiritual gates opening at night is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual reality governed by order, timing, and sensitivity. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., the atmosphere of the earth shifts. Human activities reduce, noise decreases, distractions fade, and the spirit becomes more receptive. In these hours, spiritual traffic increases because attention is low and defenses are relaxed. Throughout scripture and spiritual history, major encounters, instructions, warnings, and interventions happened at night, not by coincidence but by design. Darkness does not only represent evil, it also represents quietness, stillness, and reduced interference. When the physical environment is calm, spiritual signals are clearer. That is why dreams, burdens, impressions, and sudden awakenings often occur during these hours. Spiritual gates refer to access points where influence moves from the unseen realm into physical outcomes. When these gates open, ideas are released, battles are initiated, destinies are negotiated, and patterns are reinforced or altered. If a person is spiritually passive during these moments, existing systems continue unchallenged, delays remain delays, cycles remain cycles, and resistance remains active. Night hours expose the true state of alignment because emotions are quiet and intentions are revealed. Words spoken at these hours carry unusual weight because they are not driven by excitement but by conviction. Many people pray during the day out of routine, but night prayers are often intentional. Waking up at these hours is not about sleep deprivation. It is about alignment. It is responding to a window where authority can be exercised with minimal resistance. When declarations are made during these hours, they do not compete with distractions or divided focus. The Spirit speaks clearly and listens accurately. This is why consistent midnight engagement produces clarity, direction, and acceleration. Spiritual gates do not stay open forever. They operate by timing. Missing them does not destroy destiny, but it delays manifestation. Understanding this truth shifts prayer from habit to strategy. It explains why some breakthroughs come suddenly after a night encounter and why long-standing issues collapse after one properly aligned moment. Timing does not replace faith, it amplifies it. When faith meets the right hour, resistance weakens and outcomes shift. Explain to in details. Don't add subheadings and ending sentences in 350 words. Midnight being a legal hour means that the spiritual realm operates with laws, permissions, and protocols, not randomness. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., matters concerning lives, territories, and assignments are reviewed, reinforced, or challenged. This period functions like a courtroom where cases are mentioned, evidence is weighed, and verdicts are sustained or overturned. Nothing in the spirit happens without authorization, and authorization is often granted or withdrawn during these quiet hours when human interference is minimal. Silence in the physical realm creates clarity in the spiritual realm, making this time especially significant. Every persistent issue in a person's life is sustained by a permission, either known or unknown. Delays, repeated failures, strange limitations, and inherited struggles do not survive by chance. They remain because something is legally backing them. Midnight prayers are not emotional cries but legal engagements. They are moments where a believer presents truth, alignment, and authority to challenge what has been standing unopposed. During the day, many prayers are reactive, driven by frustration. At night, prayer becomes deliberate, strategic, and precise. The reason resistance often intensifies when someone begins midnight prayer is because systems do not relinquish control easily. Legal structures resist termination until challenged correctly. When declarations are made during this hour, they function as petitions and enforcement combined. A person is not asking for mercy alone but invoking higher authority to override lower permissions. This is why accuracy matters more than volume. Wrong words can maintain a case instead of closing it, but right declarations dissolve long-standing claims. The legal nature of midnight prayer also explains why confession, repentance, and alignment are critical. No case can be won while standing in contradiction. Authority flows through alignment, not emotion. When a person comes before the spiritual court with a clear conscience, correct understanding, and consistent walk, their declarations carry weight. Patterns that survived years of effort collapse in moments because their legal ground has been removed. Understanding midnight as a legal hour transforms prayer from repetition into enforcement. It explains why some prayers produce immediate shifts and others echo without response. It is not about favoritism, it is about protocol. When timing, alignment, and authority meet, verdicts change. What once had permission loses it, and what was delayed receives authorization to manifest. Midnight as a legal hour means the spiritual realm functions on order, authority, and permissions rather than emotions or chance. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., activities in the physical world slow down, but spiritual processes intensify. This window operates like a courtroom where matters concerning lives, destinies, and long-standing patterns are examined. Every recurring struggle, delay, or resistance is sustained by a form of permission, whether inherited, spoken, tolerated, or enforced through ignorance. Nothing continues without a reason, and midnight is the hour where those reasons can be confronted with authority. During the day, many prayers are reactionary. People pray because something went wrong, pressure increased, or fear rose. At night, especially in these hours, prayer becomes intentional and precise. The mind is quieter, emotions are subdued, and motives are clearer. This clarity is critical in legal engagement because accuracy matters more than intensity. In a legal system, shouting does not change a verdict. Alignment with law does. Midnight prayer works because it aligns a person with divine order, not because it is dramatic. Legal hours demand responsibility. When a person rises at this time, they are not coming to complain but to present a case. Words spoken are not wishes, they are statements of position. Declarations made here either authorize change or reinforce existing systems. This is why careless words at night can sustain bondage, while deliberate declarations can dismantle years of limitation. The spirit realm responds to what is said, not what is felt. Resistance often increases when someone begins to engage these hours consistently. That resistance is evidence that something is being challenged. Systems that have held ground do not release control quietly. Midnight exposes what has been hidden under routine and distraction. It reveals the difference between desire and authority. Authority flows from alignment, obedience, and understanding, not desperation. Seeing midnight as a legal hour changes how prayer is approached. It removes haste and replaces it with consciousness. It teaches that victory is not random but procedural. When timing is respected, alignment is maintained, and declarations are accurate, permissions shift and outcomes follow, because what once stood legally loses its ground and can no longer remain unchallenged. Prayer being enforcement rather than request means understanding authority instead of emotion. Many people approach prayer as a plea, hoping that intensity, tears, or repetition will persuade heaven. But in spiritual operations, results are not produced by persuasion. They are produced by authority. Authority is the right to command based on alignment, position, and truth. When a person prays without understanding this, prayer becomes a wish. When a person prays with this understanding, prayer becomes an act of governance. Enforcement assumes that something has already been granted, established, or promised and now must be executed. This shifts prayer from uncertainty to confidence. A request asks if something is possible. Enforcement declares that something must happen because the conditions have been met. This is why words matter deeply. Vague prayers produce vague outcomes, but precise declarations activate definite results. In enforcement, prayer is not about trying to move God. It is about aligning oneself with divine order and commanding outcomes that already have spiritual backing. This kind of prayer requires responsibility. You cannot enforce what you are not aligned with. Authority leaks when lifestyle contradicts declaration. The reason many prayers sound sincere but remain powerless is because authority flows through consistency, obedience, and understanding. Enforcement prayer does not beg for favor, it stands on truth. It does not negotiate with fear, delay, or resistance, it confronts them. When a person speaks from this posture, resistance responds because it recognizes legitimacy. Enforcement also demands courage. Declaring results means taking responsibility for outcomes. It removes the comfort of passivity. When you enforce, you are saying that silence is no longer acceptable and delay no longer has permission. This kind of prayer often attracts opposition because it disrupts existing systems. Systems tolerate requests, but they react to commands. That reaction is not failure. It is confirmation that authority has been exercised. Understanding prayer as enforcement changes how time, words, and focus are used. It eliminates empty repetition and replaces it with intentional speech. It trains the spirit to speak with precision rather than desperation. When prayer becomes enforcement, results are no longer accidental or delayed. They are responses to authority expressed with understanding and alignment. Certain results demanding certain timing means that outcomes in life are not produced by effort alone, but by alignment with spiritual seasons and windows. Time in the spiritual realm is not neutral. Every instruction, promise, and breakthrough is connected to a specific moment when conditions are favorable. Ignoring timing does not cancel purpose, but it weakens impact and prolongs struggle. This is why some people work harder, yet advance slower, while others move with less strain but greater accuracy. They are not more gifted, they are more aligned with timing. There are prayers that work in broad daylight, and there are prayers that only respond at night. There are decisions that bring progress at one season and resistance in another. Timing governs receptivity. When a person acts outside the right time, even correct actions face opposition. This explains why repeated efforts sometimes yield no fruit, not because the effort is wrong, but because the moment is wrong. In spiritual operations, the right action at the wrong time can be as ineffective as the wrong action entirely. Between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., spiritual sensitivity is heightened because distractions are minimal and focus is sharper. These hours provide a window where certain declarations gain traction faster. This is not superstition, it is structure. Just as physical systems operate on schedules, spiritual systems operate on timing. Ignoring this reality leads to frustration and burnout. Understanding it leads to strategy and peace. Timing also affects authority. When a person speaks at the right time, words carry weight. Outside that time, the same words may sound correct but lack force. This is why some breakthroughs appear sudden. They are not sudden in preparation, they are sudden in manifestation because timing aligns. Long seasons of waiting often end in moments of acceleration when the correct hour is engaged. Recognizing that certain results require certain timings changes how patience is understood. Patience is not inactivity, it is readiness. It is staying aligned until the window opens. When action meets the right moment, resistance weakens and progress becomes natural. This understanding removes unnecessary struggle and replaces it with wisdom. It teaches that success is not always about doing more, but about doing what is required at the right time when the system is prepared to respond. Declarations restructuring systems means spoken words, when aligned with authority and understanding, have the capacity to alter existing spiritual arrangements that govern outcomes. Life does not run on randomness, it runs on systems. Systems are structured patterns that determine what is permitted, what is resisted, and what is repeated. Many people try to change results without addressing the system that produces them. As long as a system remains intact, outcomes remain predictable. Declarations are not motivational statements. They are instruments that confront and rewrite these structures. Every system is sustained by agreement. Some agreements are inherited. Some are spoken unconsciously. Some are reinforced by fear, silence, or repeated behavior. When a declaration is made with light and alignment, it withdraws agreement from the old structure and establishes a new one. This is why silence is powerful, but speech is decisive. What is not challenged verbally often remains legally. Declarations interrupt continuity. They signal that the current order is no longer accepted. Restructuring a system does not always produce instant visible change, but it initiates invisible rearrangement. When a person consistently declares truth, alignment, and authority, the system begins to lose coherence. Resistance may increase because systems defend themselves. This resistance is not proof of failure, it is proof that something is being altered. Systems collapse gradually before they collapse suddenly. Declarations accelerate this process by repeatedly enforcing a new order. Words spoken without understanding reinforce systems, but words spoken with light dismantle them. This is why accuracy matters. Declaring what sounds good but lacks alignment produces no effect. Declaring truth that is rooted in authority forces adjustment. Systems respond to consistency more than emotion. One declaration may create awareness, but repeated declarations create restructuring. Over time, access points close, permissions expire, and patterns weaken. Declarations also establish boundaries. They define what is allowed and what is forbidden. When boundaries are spoken clearly, systems recalibrate. This is why personal environments change when declarations are sustained. Relationships, opportunities, resistance, and clarity begin to shift because the governing structure has been altered. Restructuring does not always feel dramatic, but it is deeply effective. It works because systems recognize authority expressed through aligned speech and respond by reorganizing around the new order being enforced. Consistency turning fire into evidence means that repeated, focused spiritual engagement transforms potential into visible results. Many people experience moments of breakthrough or inspiration but fail to see long-term change because they treat these encounters as isolated events rather than a pattern to build upon. Fire alone, a sudden insight, a single declaration, or one intense prayer carries energy, but it lacks permanence. Without consistency, that fire fades and the impact remains temporary. It is the disciplined return to the spiritual assignment, the repeated declaration, the night after night engagement that converts initial power into lasting evidence. Consistency establishes credibility in the spirit realm, just as repeated actions build trust and reliability in the physical world. Regular spiritual alignment reinforces authority. The spirit recognizes persistence. Systems that resist change are challenged not by one night of intensity, but by repeated confrontation that proves determination and legitimacy. Over time, resistance loses its grip because it cannot sustain opposition against steady enforcement. Fire that is consistent becomes heat that reshapes patterns and melts obstacles. Without continuity, the heat dissipates and systems remain unchanged. Evidence emerges when consistent spiritual action aligns with timing, authority, and declaration. One cannot declare once and expect the full manifestation of results if other conditions, timing, alignment, and understanding are absent. Repetition compounds the effect. Night after night, words spoken with precision, faith, and authority begin to produce observable shifts. Situations that seem stagnant start to respond, doors begin to open, delays shorten, and clarity emerges. What began as potential energy becomes kinetic, moving circumstances in a measurable direction. Consistency also strengthens personal discipline and clarity. It trains the mind and spirit to recognize opportunity, timing, and authority. One night of prayer or declaration is a spark. Continued engagement converts that spark into a sustained flame. Over time, this flame becomes undeniable evidence, visible in both life circumstances and spiritual experience. The system itself begins to adjust, aligning with the persistence of the individual. In essence, consistency bridges the gap between intention and reality. It ensures that what begins as a moment of fire becomes a chain reaction of transformation. Repetition, when intentional and precise, turns spiritual potential into tangible results, demonstrating that sustained effort in alignment with divine order produces outcomes that are measurable, undeniable, and lasting. Now is the time to stop sleeping through your destiny. The hour between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. is not ordinary. It is a window where breakthroughs, reversals, and miracles are released. What you declare in alignment with authority will begin to reshape your life. Don't let hesitation or doubt steal this moment. Stand, speak, and enforce your spiritual rights with boldness. Persist night after night and watch resistance crumble, doors open, and delays vanish. Your words aligned with timing and authority are more powerful than you realize. Rise, declare, and let the results speak for themselves.